Morning everyone and welcome to Hollywood Hills on a Monday once again. Now, if you were with us for the journey the whole way through the year, and particularly last week, you'll have seen we shone the light on Farm Jam. They've changed their format of racing, they've gone hare scramble style, and they also have massive numbers on the gate. They've gone pure two-wheelers, removing the quads from the equation, and last week was all about the pros. This week, stand by, because if you're one of the support class racers out there, racing out of the two-wheeler novice and amateur gates, this is where you get your chance to shine. Maybe we didn't show all of you guys, but remember there were well over 35 guys average entered into each of the gates. This is a focus point on the guys that made the cut inside the top 10. So if you didn't make the top 10, get training. Maybe buy some new parts from the guys up at Vans Racing. And we'll see you on the line next time when we go into Farm Jam number 2. For now, this is Farm Jam number 1 with the focus on the novice and amateur gates. Last week we showed you what went down at round number 1 of the Farm Jam, and we focused in on the pro classes and the juniors that took up the chase at the Isiyala Forever Resort. This week it's a focus in on all the support classes, and that is our novices and amateurs that made up more than 2/3 of the entry of the first and opening round of Farm Jam 2021. When the flag dropped, everyone was chasing the cheese, and remember, by this stage all of the pro categories had gone out, so the track was nice and open, and everyone knew, as we know in the past with Farm Jam, it is critical, crucial and all important to try and chase the cheese and get that whole shot air. All of these amateur and novice gates had well over 35 riders average entry across the board, so it was going to be a busy afternoon for all of the competitors. 1 or 2 riders pushed a little bit hard too early and were going to make their lives more difficult as the race went on. But the track was prime. A little bit of rain overnight had created some mud bogs, and everyone knew about that. It was a clear and concise riders briefing that had everyone set up knowing what they had to do. A good friend of ours at Hollywood Hills and at Farm Jam, Dean Gillau, did his homework in the off season and got his 350 hooked up, fired up, and the fast KTM man saw clear air early on. But that wasn't the case for everyone out there. No matter what, everyone was going to have a great day in the saddle as they set themselves up and tried to achieve the goal of 5 laps at the Isiyala Forever Resort, round 1 of Farm Jam. For the support classes, we focus in on the novice gates and the amateurs, starting out with the S3 novices. These are the guys that run the smaller bikes out there on the track, and most of these guys were able to tag an average of 2 laps on the day. Remember, it was just under 30 kilometers, and it was testing terrain as well. A lot different to what a lot of these guys who are Farm Jam veterans were used to. But remember, there were a lot of newbies out there as well, so it was fun to see some different names making their way inside the top 10. Niels Kemp walked away with a top 10. Up the road from him was Krobler, Gunn and Kotze, with Johan Munich getting the job done inside the top 6. Monty de Lange was very strong also, just breaking his way inside of a top 5. But Henke Smith and Christian Rudolf Labuskakny were the chargers inside the top 5. 3rd place going to Labuskakny. The track did hold together very nicely as well, and the opening lap allowed these guys to really figure out what hare scramble meant. It was a nice, even mixture between the 2 different facets. A little bit of knoll, a little bit of flatland, but nothing too crazy on either end of the spectrum. Nathan Milan walked away with a number 2 spot on the day, and he was charging the whole way, trying to get onto the back wheel of the number 52, or certainly the number 52 designation for the day at the opening round of Farm Jams, and that was Jaco Foster. Squeaky clean on lap 1, and not bad on the laps after that as well to walk away with a new win on the tour. Here's a confirmation of how things broke down in the S3 novices then. Foster ahead of Milan and Labuskakny, with Smith, de Lange rounding out the top 5 ahead of Munich, Kutzer, Gunn, Krobler and Kemp. Climbing up the ladder then in the novices, we stay with that category for now and move forward into the S2s. These are the guys predominantly running either out there on 252 strokes or 354 strokes. Again, a top 10 was going to be a big brag for these riders as they muscled and wound their way around this challenging just under 30-kilometer round number 1 of Farm Jam out here just outside of Middelburg. Jonathan Gumley walked away with the first or last of the double digits. That's 10th place in old money, and he was just off the back wheel on the day of the 299 of Johan van Zyl. Van Zyl had a good run of things the whole way through and generally stayed out of trouble as well. The key to the results at Farm Jam number 1 were to stay out of the mud and stay out of the traffic as well. Jean-Dre Combrink got the job done inside of a number 8, and just up the road from him was Reinhard Stein, just outside of the magical top 6. Remember, all these riders were chasing down top 5 if they wanted to make the bacon, get the big points on the plate, and walk away with the trophies come the end of play on the day. Luke Riley was up inside of that magical number 6, just off the box, and then it was the first of the magical number 5s coming in for Rian Labuskakny. Labuskakny did a good run of things as well, also stayed out of trouble for most part of the day, had a little bit of damage on the front part of his bike, which did show that he had gone down the road at some point in the event, but nonetheless, the wheels were turning and everything was still lined up as it should be. One of the smaller Kawasaki's running out there, and smaller riders as well, Calvin Labuskakny, got it up inside of a top 4, and he actually had a very strong run of it the whole way through the day. What we tend to see at Farm Jams as well is a very strong mixture of old and new bikes and anything in between. And it's very rare that you see a 2-stroke pipe hanging out the back of a Kawasaki nowadays. Isiyala van Asverken had a slightly younger bike as well, and he got the job done inside of a number 3 spot. So he wasn't hanging around at all, and he was trying desperately to chase up onto the back wheel of the riders that ran first and second place on the day. But Isiyala van Asverken, a very rock-solid start to the year for him. Second place, and the man that pretty much squeaked the whole shot coming out of the gates in the morning session. Remember, these guys were out of the queue just after the 11 o'clock marker. Dean Galau, one of our favorite riders out there on the Farm Jams. He is so much fun to be around on the track and out in the pits, and cool to see him actually start to put together some good championships in his season, coming back from injuries that he picked up just around about 18 months back. So Dean Galau, or as we like to say, DJ Mackey, riding out of the Foss KTM squad, rolling out on his primo setup of a 350, got the job done into second place. And that is a very strong start to his championship campaign, because remember, he's going to be one of the guys that is looking out to get the number 1 spot come the end of the racing season at the end of 2021. There was only one guy up the road from him, and that was Francois Fisaki, accredited with the number 98 on the front of the bike. Few little mistakes that did catch out many of the riders on the day, but Fisaki was still strong enough to stay out of the big holes and the big problems to tag his number 1 spot. He's going to be the guy to beat on the S2 novice gate going forward into next season. Fisaki then credited and confirmed ahead of Galau, Van Asverken, Labuskakny, Riley, Stein, Combrink, Van Zyl and Gumley. And then, as we say, we go back down onto the trails and start to climb the ladder on the big banger category. This is the S1 novices. And the S1 dictates that they are first out the gate and they are running either 350 smokers or 450 and 500s. We call this in old money the open category. These guys can bring all the horsepower they want. They simply have to be able to hang on to it. Number 10 finish on the day went to the man we just saw. That was Nicholas Clausen. And then Gary Garcia, who is running one of the oldest blue Yamaha machines out there. Check the size of that tailpipe hanging off the back of that thing. That thing is well old, at least 10 years stuck at the back of someone's garage. Werner Van Heerden rocking it out there, looking very factory fresh. All Vans Racing Husqvarna up inside of a number 8 ride. And then Tristan Moret, who has that lovely riding style that we like to see. The guy stood nice and high on the pegs. He's tall as well, which keeps him out of trouble, and he can really start to get the flow going. I don't think this track really suited what we can see coming out of Moret, and we should see him able to run slightly faster lap times as he gets more used to this new hare scramble racing format. Luke Guy gelled a little bit better than the rest of the guys as he walked away with a number 6 ride, but he also had his problems. He snapped the back end plastics off his bike and they were jammed up in the front end of the bike for the rest of the day. But still, he walked away and got the job done inside of a top 6, with Christian Kotze getting it up inside the top 5. He was credited as our first podium finisher as well. So the 343 got the numbers on the page and walked away with his trophy and can start thinking about building on those numbers for the rest of the championship tour. Joe Bowen was stuck in the traffic on lap number 2, but still got himself out of it as well and was able to try and move up the order. Sometimes you can tag on the back end of the pros and actually improve your lap times by just following the wheel in front of you. If you're out in no man's lands or stuck behind the slower traffic, that's where it starts to become a problem. Third place, and the guys that were really pushing the pace in the S1 novice category, the big bangers, Dwight Brewer, did a very clean run of it. His pace showed that he does like to get on the throttle nice and early, and he is a bit of a hero as far as the flatland sections goes, but maybe not as fast in the tech, the uphills and the downhills. Renier Bellingham here seeing taken the flag, and the Bellinghams are great supporters of us here out at Farm Jam. It was a 2-horse race in the early laps at least between Renier Bellingham and Corpus Pretorius, but it was Pretorius, seen here in the yellow Thor kit, that actually had the advantage a little bit later on in the day, and there was no coming back. Bellingham was close, but no cigar. It's going to be Pretorius who's going to be the man to beat on the S1 novice gate, as he kept his nose clean, stayed out of trouble, didn't get jammed up in the mud, and kept the flow going all the way to the checkered flag to see the numbers. Here's confirmation then of Pretorius ahead of Bellingham and Brewer, with Bauer, Kutzer, Guy and Moret taking us to a number 7, Van Heerden, Garcia and Klaassen rounding out the tasty top 10. On to the amateurs then, that sit right smack in between the novice and the pros. So not quite as slow as the novices, but not quite as fast as the pro categories. We'll start things out with the S3s, where Anru Mostert walked away with a number 10 ride, trying to chase down onto the back wheel of Vian Robbie. These are two youngsters with a very strong future ahead of them. They have not long come out of the junior 85 categories, so they're still trying to find their feet on the bigger bikes and up against the bigger riders with more experience and more horsepower underneath them as well. Francois Van Heerden, who we've seen racing on the tours for the last couple of years, changed brands and changed sponsors along the way as well. This is his comeback season. Up the road from him was the 122 and the first of the Suns Out Guns Out squad coming out of Farm Jam, 7th place going to Jean Schippers. Jean getting unceremoniously lapped by the leading pro. We won't shine too much of a light on him, but you've got to catch up to the pros every now and again, and that is the stepping stone that we run here at the Farm Jams. When you're good or good enough to win out in the amateurs, then you move forward into the pro categories. Troy Erasmus was up the road from him inside at number 6, with Renier Kotze tagging the first of the podium placings. That was a number 5. Zach Kutsia broke his way inside of a top 4 with some very aggressive riding to get the job done and move on up. Number 3 went to Hanru van der Sant, and he was very aggressive, getting on the pipe nice and early on the Blue Smoke KTM as well to try and chase down the big numbers. Jacques Oosthuizen was credited with a very solid ride on the day as well, and his lap times were very consistent also. In fact, his final lap time giving him his fastest lap overall on the day. A lot of riders tended to do that as well, as it was testing terrain and they had to learn where they were going, where they could make up speed and where they could shave a little bit of time every single lap. Oosthuizen then getting a very rock solid number 2. And then Rian Prinsloo, who made his life hard as well, almost pulled the whole shot, pulled the pin, but he tagged the back wheel of a rider going into whole shot turn number 1 and had to pick himself up. So it was a busy day for Rian Prinsloo to make his way through a lot of traffic, and the 345 rider, who should definitely be able to run the pace of a lot of the pros out there, walked away with the S3 amateur win, the flag, and another title for Prinsloo, who was a man on the up once again. Prinsloo beats out then, confirmed ahead of Oosthuizen, Van der Sant, Kutsia and Kotze, with Erasmus, Schippers, Van Heerden, Robbie and Mostert rounding out the S3 amateurs. The S2 amateur gate gave us some of the closest racing on the day. When you look at some of the lap times these guys were able to run, it was a very difficult ask to break your way inside the top 10, and even, as you would expect, more difficult to break your way inside of a top 5. The track was running good, but these guys seemed to get into quite a few of the bottlenecks, so there was a lot of elbows that had to be used to find that extra bit of traction, if you know what I mean. Keaton Fenter broke himself inside of a top 10, chasing down on the back wheel of Gareth Emmett and Morné Kutzer, with Vickers van Aert charging his way up inside of a number 7. The afternoon temperatures didn't hold these riders back as well. It didn't quite get into the mid-35s, but it wasn't too far off. And definitely the riders would have felt it up on the more exposed sections of the track. Evan Wessels walked away with a number 6 ride as he chased down onto the back wheel of Etienne Kreiling. And here at the mud bog, you can see there were 2 approaches to the mud. Either you wait your turn or you grip it and rip it. I know what I'd rather have happening to me. I don't want the mud coming into my face. I want to be flicking it off my back wheel. Etienne Kreiling then walking away with a sweet spot of a number 5. He also credits his result by getting a good gate and staying out of the traffic that was coming from behind. Remember, the S2 amateurs, as with all of the gates that went out at Farm Jam, had well over 35 riders in the queue. So it was busy on lap number 1 until the group started to separate themselves out. Etienne Kreiling then with a number 5, with Justin Robert walking away, coming out of Robertco. And the Robertco guys are deciding to come full-time farm jamming with us the whole way through 2021. So we'll expect to see Justy get a number 4 ride here, but also try and chase down on the top 3s for the rest of the year as well. He does a lot of racing and a lot of riding around the country, so should be getting faster as the year gets longer. Ryan Neville was inside of a number 3, so he's going to be a championship rider and a championship player to watch when you start adding up all those numbers. 3rd place is a very good start at the beginning of what's going to be a 6-round championship for the Farm Jams. We're going to be predominantly staying in the Mpumalanga area, not too far away from the home base, that is Middelburg. So we'll keep bringing you all these brand new tracks and racing action brought to you here by Hollywood Hills and LiveX. James Du Toit got it done inside of a number 2, and I like his riding style. He was very close to the lap times posted by some of the mid-pack pros. At the mud box, you could see there was a good line to the left and middle, but the right-hand side really caused some major problems for the riders. Just the one rider out front then, and we have a new man on top, and that is Cornelius Pernif, getting it done ahead of Du Toit, Neville, Robert and Kreiling. Those were the guys taking the cheese inside the top 5, with Wessels and Van Aert just outside. And so on to our final category for this show, and to sign off on round 1 of the Farm Jams, the S1 amateurs. And certainly the guys that ran inside the top 5 here, their lap times show that they were very, very close to the times posted by the pros like we saw in last week's show. The reason for that is this was a leveler of a track. It was a 50-50 split between tech and a little bit of high speed, and it was just a 30-kilometer loop. So no real areas for anyone to really push the pace and try and stretch their legs out. And we like that as well, because we had very, very close racing on the day. Renzo van Leuven walked away with a number 10 spot. Up the road from him, the first of the single digits, was JJ Oosthuizen, another one of the riders coming out of Robertco, and he's going to be along for the full tour throughout 2021. Rudolf Boylan walked away with a number 8 ride, and just up the road was Francois van der Westhuizen. And then inside the top 6, but he'd have expected to run a little bit higher than that, was Nick Wells. Nicky is a classy rider and can probably hold the pace of a lot of pros up the road, but the track just didn't suit his flat-out riding style, and he had to settle for a number 6 on the day. Nicky, though, will come a little bit faster as the year goes on, and he also gets himself used to the new format of hare scrambles that are running out with the Farm Jam. Andrea Casillo. Casillo is a strong family and racing name up here in Mpumalanga, and a top 5 puts him on the charts, and it's going to be fun to see if he's going to be able to improve throughout the rest of the season as well. Loose as a goose on the big throttle. Of course, remember the S1s are throwing as much horsepower as they like at that back wheel along the way. Some of the descents certainly aided when you're running the big 4-strokes. You get a little bit of that extra engine braking, and then on the flatland sections, you can really open up the taps. Robert Chester rocked his Sherco all the way inside of a top 4, and the rangy rider was definitely looking all kinds of factory out there, running in the neon colors. one of the fastest riders in the tech zones at the top of the charts. Also very easy for us on the production to spot when we were marking all the footage. So thanks for that, Chester. Wiley Harrington, tasty rider, running on the 313 the whole way through the day, inside of a third place. And an easily recognizable, super aggressive riding style. Elbows high, shoulders up, and peak up, looking for the next little bit of a gap to try and wind it up. Dean Martin was up there inside of a number 2 spot as well, but there was no beating out on Dwayne Clausen. He very nearly got the cheese on the whole shot, aggressive as ever, but somehow is able to keep the front end down on that super powerful machine of his, and he took the flag and is the guy to beat on the S1 amateur gate. And so polite as well, so we can spot him every time he came in. That's how you get the wins done. So classy riding from Clausen ahead of Martin and Harrington, with Chester, Casillo, Wells, Van der Westhuizen, Boylan, Oosthuizen and Van Leeuwen rounding out the top 10. So that's how it went down at the opening round of Farm Jams out at the Isiyala Forever Resort. Stay with us as we start to move around just outside of Middelburg once again to pick up on round number 2 on the 17th of April at Boccabello. Get those entries in and we'll be there to make you famous once again. So that's our wrap, and we draw a line under Farm Jam Racing number 1. We get ourselves ready for Farm Jam number 2, which is coming just around the corner as well. They've already announced the dates. They've already opened entries as well. So check out the poster here. Go onto Race Control and get those entries in as quick as possible. Me and the LiveX lads will be down there once again covering the show. And that, I think, is the 3rd racing weekend of next month. So get those entries in. We can't wait to see you guys up there and see what we can do. So what went down this weekend? It was a double header. It was the GXCC guys out at Modimolle, also hosting their 2nd round of the championship, combined with the national championship as well. It was a wild, crazy day with lots going on, and right now, me and the lads at LiveX are bleeding at the moment, working our way through the footage to make you guys rock stars. That first production will focus in on the juniors and the quads, and will be out by the end of this week. So stay tuned. And right now, guys, in Hollywood Hills land, just have another awesome week out there. Keep training, keep buying the new stuff. Remember, if it's shiny, it's got to be faster. All right, guys, have a great week. We'll see you next week, and check in at the end of the week when we drop the first production. That's going to be the juniors and the quads from Modimolle GXCC round number 2. Laters.